everybody, and welcome to the Humans and Wildlife Show. My name is Georgia Auteri, and with me today is my co-host, Christian Sase. Christian, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, today is my favorite topic, of course, all my eagle friends. I mean, this is what it's all about eagles. And I have got actually a good friend of mine here who I interviewed 3 years ago. It's amazing. And his footage, and trust me, if I say his footage is brilliant, I mean it. And you will see it. He's got the most amazing slow motion videos and footage that you've ever seen. So without further ado, let's get Mike Lemary in.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining
Hi,
us.
guys. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, Mike. So it's really wonderful because Georgia and I launched this Humans and Wildlife show, and actually what you are doing is so fitting for this topic. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into this, and then we'll show you clips.
Yeah, so I live in Schenectady, New York, and I've been doing video production and filmmaking since 2008 when I graduated college. When I first got out of college, I got a new camera and I wanted to test a new camera. And here in Albany, there's a big waterfall. And when I was at this waterfall, I saw a sign that said, bald eagles can be seen here. And at that point in my life, I've never seen a bald eagle. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And the next time I came back, I had my camera. I saw two bald eagles and I got great shots of them. And I've been kind of hooked ever since. So since that moment, and that was probably, I think, 2013, I just been going back and filming bald eagles and getting more and more footage, learning more about them, and then getting better camera gear. And then to this day, still filming bald eagles. So that's what kind of got me into it, kind of an accident. And but I love doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, Mike. And thank you also to everyone in the comments in the chat for joining. Thanks, David, for the High Award, and Brenda and Rachel and Phyllis and Zara, Lucia, Helke. We have like a lot of people here today. So thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say we even have someone from the Conowingo Dam. So Mike, on that on that word Conowingo, can you explain what is so special about that dam? Why do you always go there?
Yeah, so I live in upstate New York, and we do have quite a few bald eagles here, but you're always looking for like a new spot to go film and find eagles. So after doing some research and just looking around online, I kept seeing this Conowingo Dam. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about it. And I found out that it was in Maryland. And so one year, I think 5 years ago, I just drove my car down and I said, I'll just give it a shot. And when I got to the dam, I got there at sunrise, and there was probably 200 or 300 eagles hanging out right at this dam. And it was like the most eagles I've ever seen at one time. And not only the most eagles I've seen, but they were like active. Like I was getting more footage in one day than I got a whole year back home, just because an eagle catches a fish and then there's a fight. An eagle catches a fish and there's a fight. And it's like nonstop action at the dam, which is really fun to watch. And it's right in front of you. I mean, there's not much more you can ask for. And it's kind of an interesting place because you would never think that it'd be a place where you'd find a lot of bald eagles. And I think the main reason why they're there is, so this dam, it's a huge dam. I think it's about a mile long on the Susquehanna River. Is that when the fish go through the dam, something when they go through the turbines or whatever they go through, it kind of like stuns the fish. And so basically they kind of like float to the surface of the water. So it's like an easy meal for bald eagles. I mean, there's also like a ton of cormorants, there's seagulls, there's people fishing there. I mean, there's a ton of fish there. So I think once these fish go through the turbines and they come out, and you can see them floating on, it's just like an eagle buffet, really. Now, how all the eagles found the spot, I don't know, but it seems like especially late fall, they seem to congregate there for quite a while now. So it's pretty amazing.
That's amazing. And are there so many eagles all year around, or do you come there in special times?
I've only been there at like November, Thanksgiving time seems to be like one of the best times. I know there's eagles there all year round. I haven't been there the other time, but I know it dies down quite a bit. And if you can catch it at the right time, it can be like really pretty exciting. But yeah, in terms of, I know there is like there is definitely a nesting pair there. For a couple of years, I've seen them building the nest right in one of the towers, the telephone poles right by the dam. So there's definitely local eagles there, just not the amount that you'd have late fall.
That's interesting because I just see here in the comments someone says fall and spring. So you obviously have a few enthusiasts here who know the dam very well. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, several people. But for those of us who don't know the dam, perhaps it's time to share one of your videos so we can get a visual for what this situation looks like here.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna get that.
Yes. Here, I'm just going to put this up here. Let's put this comment here. So Conowingo Dam is the migration path up and down the east coast. So that makes complete sense.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, and they are, I forget what it is with dams. I mean, the turbines kind of stun the fish, but they are also working on building like more fish-friendly turbines now for dams. Not at this dam yet, I don't think, but they're, those are being implemented at some other dams in the US now.
I feel like they have like some kind of fish ladder system in place there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they just get so many fish that go through that Susquehanna River there that
Yeah.
I think it's mostly shad, if I want to call it. It seems to be the main fish that they seem to catch there. Do you want me to just share this?
Yes, please go ahead.
Go ahead and share. And yeah, for those joining late, this is the bald eagles aggregating at the Conowingo Dam, where they can form these really big groups of eagles and take advantage of all these fish that are stunned or a little bit tripped up by the dam or whatever. Yeah, it looks like, or is that?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
It's recorded there.
So, and I'll leave Christian up for a moment.
Yes, take me out and that's it. Perfect. Okay. That's perfect.
Yep, here we go. So I'll kind of explain what's going on as I play through the shots here. But the first thing you see, and that's the sirens of the dam about to go on, and there's the nest and the telephone pole there. This is all from 2020. This is from last year, and you can see it's a big photographer hotspot to find these eagles.
So do you have to be there very early, Mike, in order to get a good spot?
If you want to get in, you have to get there before the sun comes up, or else the parking lot gets full. At least that's how it's been recently. So yeah, you have to get there early, but that's when a lot of the action is, and you get beautiful sunrises there. But it's just kind of cool because the eagles just like they'll come from all over. Like before you know it, they're just like they'll spot a fish, one catches a fish. And then it's usually a race to see who can steal it from them.
We have a question here in the chat from Greg. What's your biggest challenge in eagle videography? Is it the getting up early or is it something else?
The getting up early is, that's not, I mean, I don't mind doing that. It's the finding action. Like this is a kind of a rare spot where you can go the right time of year. It's like, it's kind of like nonstop action. But being able to find, because most of the time eagles just sit there. So majority of the time you're just waiting for something to happen. So that's a big challenge. And then the other one is just being ready when something does happen, because it can be really easy to be kind of lured to sleep as they're, sitting there for hours, and then making sure you don't miss the action when it happens. And then the hardest thing I think too is trying to keep them in focus. For video, for the camera that I use, I do all manual focus. So that's
manual, absolutely. Tricky. So tell me a little bit about your equipment, because of course that me a lot because of their fast movement, and you do manual focus.
Yeah.
So give us a bit of background there, please.
Yeah. So I've used quite a few different cameras. I started off with the Sony FS700 a couple of years ago. And I've always been used to manual focus, especially when I started with video cameras, never had video autofocus. That was never a thing. And if it did have autofocus, it was unusable. So you kind of train yourself to kind of memorize which way is forward, which way is back, and just use your the tools on your camera to help keep it in focus. But now I moved up to, I have, it's called the Z Cam, which is actually a great little camera that shoots 4K, 120 frames per second. And it's a micro four thirds sensor. So that gives me a little bit more reach versus like a full frame sensor. And, but it still has manual focus, which means that you really have to get the focus on your own. I know there's a lot of new cameras, especially the mirrorless ones, that have great autofocus for video. But for the setup I'm using now, it's been all manual focus, which can be handy sometimes too when you're trying to isolate a single eagle or a certain thing. You can actually pick what you want in focus and choose what you want to do. So if you can do it, it can be better if you're good at it, but it's very hard to nail it, especially when the hardest is when they're coming right at you full speed.
Oh, yes.
And and then the clips, it's kind of hard to tell because this is all slow motion. So it in real time they're moving, and to try to line up the focus and see what's in focus, and then try to keep the action and figure out what's going on. It's kind of tricky, but the more you do it, as you know, Christian, the more you do it, the more practice you get. You get some good shots.
Oh, Mike, I'm completely with you. And the next thing I'm going to ask you, what F number are you running at to get a depth of field? Because that's so critical, and the light and everything. So
I usually do about an F8. I want to say F9.
Wow.
But I also have the micro four thirds has a little bit more leeway with the depth of field versus like a full frame camera. So it helps me there. But I also get a lot more zoom, so that. But I try to stick around to F8, F9, somewhere in there.
That's very interesting. That's sort of the sweet spot always, isn't it?
Yep.
And how many frames per second are these? I mean, they're so beautifully sharp. And I know how difficult this is, what Mike is showing there. I can tell you this
especially this shot when it's coming at you like that. Yeah.
So difficult. So how many frames per second is this actually shot at?
This is all at 120 frames per second.
120, yes. Okay.
Yeah, 4K. So I know you shoot like 1,000 frames or something.
Beautiful. Yeah, but it's a different technique, but it's also manual focus. But I know how difficult this is. It's incredible. It's beautiful. Have you the main thing, of course, for eagle photography are two things. It's the sun and the wind, and then of course is the opportunity. So how do sun and wind direction vary there when you're there?
Well, for there's another factor too, which is the turbines. So they have a hotline that you can call that will tell you the schedule of because there's quite a few turbines. I guess there's big ones, little ones. And when the turbines are on, it seems to kick up the fish a little bit more, and it seems to be a little more action. So sometimes when there's no turbines, they can kind of just sit around a little bit. So that's a big factor. Obviously, wind and sun. But luckily for there's only really one spot you can shoot from. So you don't really have a ton of options towards the angle. But the good thing is in the morning, as you can see, morning to the afternoon, it lights them up pretty good. The sun's right at your back by the afternoon.
Yeah, you're getting some very positive comments. These are awesome. I think people understand how difficult this is. Georgia, I'm going to let you speak a bit. Go.
No, yeah, we have a lot of comments from people also who live near other falls and near this dam as well. So have you tried your hand at other dams or waterfalls, or is this mostly where you shoot the eagles just here?
So I go to Conowingo Dam usually once, maybe 1 or 2 days a year, which is kind of crazy. You can get that much footage. But here in upstate New York near Albany, I do go near, we have a big waterfall called Cohoes Falls. And I do find, and we have quite a few dams that they do seem to congregate below the dams here as well. Not anything like Conowingo, but I think that the dams or whatever make it a natural place for fish to go. And it seems like it really attracts a lot of eagles and osprey and anything that fishes below these dams. And I've also noticed mostly in the winter time, they really, especially here, I know Maryland's probably not as much, but here in January, February, when we have the really cold winters and everything ices over, those dams and waterfalls are what keep the water open. So, I mean, you can see quite a few eagles trying to find that open water. The tricky part there then is there's not many fish that they have to choose from. So
yeah, you mean normally the water is frozen over, but because of all the churning and mixing
Yep.
of the water, it stays unfrozen and they can get the fish. And I'm sure the fish are probably slower than they are at warmer times of the
Yep.
year as well because of the colder temperatures.
Yep.
So what do you think it is? I mean, this is quite the contrast to an episode that Christian and I had a few weeks back where it was bounty on the eagles, and it was about more of the ways that humans have negatively impacted bald eagles in the past. But yeah, like you said, these eagles are really taking advantage of these dams for food resources. What do you think it is about the Conowingo that makes it a particularly great dam for these eagles? Is it its location on a migratory route, or the size, or?
Yeah, I would think that the location probably has a big deal with it. I mean, the Susquehanna is a very big river, and I know it empties into the Chesapeake Bay, which has, I believe, quite a few eagles. So I think you have a natural local population, and I just think there's a lot of fish there, a lot of food, and it seems to be when the eagles, I've noticed, is that when eagles find fish, they find each other. If one eagle has a fish, the other ones will find it. It seems to be like it's kind of their thing where they find the food and they fight for the food. Because we have similar things here where it's like sometimes in the winter we'll have dead deer. You know, if there's a dead deer and one eagle finds it, before you know it, there's 20 of them there. It's just something about them that they notice when another eagle has food, and then another one notices, and so I don't know if after all these years of them, like other eagles noticing, that they just became a place that they go. I would love to know the real answer to that, because it's very interesting to me how they find that spot to start. But they definitely have found it, and they seem to keep coming back every year.
Yeah, David Howden, very nice. He always comes up with great questions. Do they detect the fish by smell? Well, I can answer that they don't. Eagles don't have a very good sense of smell, actually, but their eyes are outstanding, absolutely outstanding. I'm sure, Mike, do you want to say something to that?
Yeah, because it's like I usually use the eagles. I try to watch an eagle and see their kind of their body language to give me cues of when they see something, because you're never going to see it before them. So like if you see, there's times you can see them, they're sitting in a tree. There's times when they sit in a tree and you know they're not going anywhere for hours. And there's other times you can tell when they got something, they found something, they're just waiting for the right moment. So I think their vision is by far their best attribute, because, and then once they do, since one will catch a fish and go down there, then before you know it, you're like, where did all these other eagles come from? They come out because they saw them catch the fish, and they tried to steal it from them. And you're like, I didn't even know there was that many eagles here. So they're always watching, and they always have an eye. So I usually try to use their cues, because they'll notice that way before you do.
Yeah, we have a great
Mike,
question
can you show
from Pablo here. How would you describe eagle vision? Can it be equated to technology we use, or a particular camera lens, perhaps?
Well, I know, so I have a 600 millimeter lens, and I would say that's probably nothing to what the eagles can see. I think the other thing too is like, for humans, seeing through reflections of water, that's always hard. So being able to see like through water in far distances like that, we don't have anything that I don't think that is capable of seeing like they see.
Yeah, maybe I could just add something. So eagles have two fovea, actually. So it's different to the human eye. Where you will often watch that when eagles, for example, are eating fish on the shore. So they'll put their heads like this on the side and look right up, and that's their far vision. So that is the one way. And when you come closer to them, they use their binocular vision. So cool. Their eyes are much more accustomed actually to to see all kinds of things. So that is really the main difference between our eye and the eagle eye. So even the comparison, as many people say, an eagle can see 5 to 7 times better, is completely useless. I actually did a whole because my interest is optics. I did a whole talk once only on the vision of eagles, and it turns out there are so many beautiful details about the way an eagle sees things, and I don't want to go into that. I don't want to steal this anyway, but I just wanted to say that you can't compare that like many people say it's 5 times better. It's much more than that. Okay, so anyway, I'm go on about your.
I didn't know that. That's great,
Mike.
No, that's great.
Okay. So you have quite, I see some comments there. There's quite a lot about juveniles here. And you can see there these typical eagle disputes, which are so difficult to capture. Can you talk a little bit about what we're just seeing there?
Yeah, so I think, and this is just based off like my, from what I've seen, I don't know, the exact reason, but it seems like the most eagles that you'll see in big groups are they're either immature or they don't have a pair or a mate, because we have quite a few bald eagle pairs in Albany, and they're there all year round. So I think a lot of these eagles you see, as you can see, are between 1 and 5 years old before they become sexually mature and before they become and find a mate. So I think a lot of these eagles are just trying to find food, trying to find a mate, trying to find their path in life, really. So I think a lot of times they hang out together. We have similar things in the springtime as the ice melts. We'll see big groups of eagles that they like to hang out together. Whereas, and I don't know what you think, Christian, but like I haven't seen adult pairs. They don't like to hang out with other eagles.
That's completely correct. Yes. Yeah. And do you sometimes come there, Mike, where you have a bad day? I mean, I have many bad days. I'm just curious, do you have any bad days? Because I think people always think when they see such footage, wow, I want to go there. I want to have this immediately, right? So
yeah. Well, yes, there is bad days. I think that's why it's really important to do research and figure out what time of year to go, because there is like Facebook groups you can check and see, because you kind of have to try to time it up to a right day, and then you really got to stay there from almost sunrise to sunset if you want to get shots. So this video, this is over a 2-day period of nonstop watching, for 2 days. So there is a lot of down, and you got to pay attention because, especially there, because there's a lot of people to talk to, there's a lot of interested people, a lot of cool cameras.
Yes.
But I find as soon as you do that, you miss about 4 shots, as that usually happens.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Isn't that right? And I stuff, and then the action happens. I don't know why it happens so often, but I don't know if you've had these.
It does.
Too.
But you got to have you really have to pay attention and kind of have to have an idea of like what's going on, and I think that you can only get just from watching eagles. You can tell like when they're after something, when they're on a mission, or whether they're hunting, or when they're just flying for fun. So I think just having your camera ready, and you're going to miss a lot. And that's the thing about here. You miss probably more than you're going to get, because it just happens. Sometimes there's so many eagles, it's hard to pick which one to follow. So I would say—
Do you have some more footage, Mike? Yeah. So do you have some more footage? Because your footage just talks volumes. It's so beautiful.
I don't have any more. I have from New Jersey.
Doesn't matter. Just show them again.
Okay, sure.
If you just show them again, it's just so marvelous. So
yeah. Okay. But yeah, like for here, they'll like, and there's always in Conowingo. What I've noticed is I've heard people that will go there, and someone will say or get in their head, it's like, oh, it's not very active. There's only like 30 or 40 eagles here, which is like 30 or 40 eagles is a great day. It might be a bad day for Conowingo, but that's a great day anywhere else. And you don't need 200 to have great footage. You really don't. sometimes I think the more eagles, it makes it harder because you don't know what to follow or to choose from. So you just need a couple hungry eagles to get some good shots.
Yeah, so I guess there are preferred positions or locations where you have to be early, right? You say you spend the whole day there, so I guess
Yep.
you have to be earlier than early in order to get a
Yes.
prime spot on a good day, right? So
Yes, because it will. The way that it's set up there, it's a park that I believe is, I don't know if it's owned by the power company, but they have a limited amount of parking spots there.
oh,
So
I
in
see.
prime season, this is a very popular spot. So if you want to get a parking spot to get in, a lot of times you have to get there, 4:35 a.m. and you'll still probably be in a line.
Really? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah. In the prime
Wow.
time, it can be tough to get a. There's plenty of spots. The good thing about there is there's plenty of spots once you're in there, and you can see it can be almost elbow to elbow sometimes with people, but there's not really too many bad spots there because the action doesn't really happen in one spot, really.
Yeah, we had a question a while back about number of eagles, in addition to number of people, and just jumping back to that for a second, like eagles in North America, they were in big trouble at one point, and that was largely because of pesticide use. So, like the pesticide DDT got into like the environment, into the ecosystem, and it would cause eagles' eggs to be very thin, and they would sit on their eggs to incubate them to keep them warm, and instead the eggs would end up breaking. And so that, in conjunction with, there was also a bounty on eagles where the U.S. government would pay people for, eagle talons to encourage people to kill eagles that they saw. The objective behind that was that, the idea was that, oh, these eagles are eating all the fish that like we want for ourselves as humans.
Yep.
But those threats have since been removed, and allowing like the eagles populations to recover. And on top of that, eagles are able to take advantage of these lovely dams now that they've figured out how to use. So bald eagles are definitely on the upswing. And 30 to 40 like eagles is a lot, as you were saying. Not just, for this particular area, but like in the context of history as well. It's a wonderful privilege to get to see so many eagles together.
Absolutely. I'm just getting some Peter Bittner from HAPS. He loves technology just like we do too. So he comes in with a question here. So what lens was it that you were using? Was it a 600 millimeter lens? And of course, he's asking the great question always about stabilizer, right? Just can you maybe fill us in on that?
Yeah. So I have the Sigma 60 to 600. Which I find is a great lens for video because one of the hardest things to do for anyone who's shot on a 600 millimeter lens, especially on a smaller sensor, is finding the eagle in the frame to start. Especially if they're close, it can be really hard to be at 660 millimeters and find the eagle before it goes down and gets the fish. So with the 6600, it's nice because I can zoom out really quick to 60. I could get a wider view. I can find the eagle and I can punch back in really quick. And then I'm right there ready to go. So I really love that lens, especially for video.
That's a great one, 60 to 600. What is the minimum F? Is it F4 or reading F4, right? So yeah, wow, but you're running mainly at F8.
Yeah. So and then I use you got to have a good pair of sticks. For a good tripod. Handheld does not work very well with video. I know some of the mirrorless cameras have some really nice, IBIS and image stabilizers built in. But if you really want to get good eagle footage, you need a good tripod that can handle the weight, because that Sigma 60 to 600, it's very heavy, and you really need a good fluid head that can handle that weight, so you can get smooth shots and keep them in frame.
Yeah, and it's I'm sure you have this practice thing too, which often happens to me when I start. I'm usually not good because I want the shot, and then I really mess it up, and then I start relaxing. And the more I relax and
Yeah.
concentrate, the better
Yep.
it gets. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you and that's, I think, a good thing about Conowingo too, is that there is a lot of eagles flying around, so it gives you quite a bit of time to kind of get a feel for the area and get kind of like you said, get warmed up really, because sometimes it's like the first shot you're like, oh, lost them, it's gone, or it's out of focus, or I missed the action. So I think since there's so much activity, even them just flying, it gives you a little bit of chance to kind of get warmed up and get a feel for because it takes some time. The first shot is usually always the hardest.
yes, yes. Mike, just very, very quickly, I know you have a YouTube channel, and we'd
Yep.
like to share that with the audience. Is that okay if we?
Yeah, sure.
If you have a link, just put it into the comment, please, Mike, because I know you have beautiful footage.
Yeah, and actually, I might share one of your YouTube videos that I
Okay.
found interesting real quick, if you don't mind, because
Absolutely.
you had a video of a bald eagle with just 1 foot hunting. Was that at the Conowingo Dam, or
Yes. He had 2 feet. He was missing a talon.
missing a talon? Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a case where, well, I guess I'll just put up the video, but that's kind of interesting to me because it's a case where perhaps normally that eagle might have had a harder time surviving if in a different habitat where it didn't have quite so many fish easily accessible to it, for example. So that's kind of an inspiring take, I thought. But let's go ahead.
And it's pretty interesting too, because I didn't notice it until I got back home and I saw the footage that that it had a missing talon. Because when it was flying, you could see its foot. Usually they tuck their feet back under their body when they're flying, and this one had 1 foot that kind of dangled down a little bit. So it seemed like something was wrong. And then when I looked closer, I could see that it was missing one of its talons.
Oh, wow. That's cool. All right, I'll share
Yep.
this video.
And you can see there its foot there kind of hanging down. That's not normal.
I see.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Like here.
Yep, you see it kind of hanging down like that. Like that's what kind of made me look. I didn't notice it in real time, but when I brought it back, I was like, oh, something seemed to be wrong with its foot.
So its injured foot is dangling a little bit. Like maybe it's not just missing a talon, but it's also just a little bit less useful.
Yeah, and if you watch when it catches the fish, it only uses 1 foot to squeeze. So the first time it missed, and then you can see the foot dangling there. But when it did catch the fish, it only used its left foot.
Yeah, I noticed that. I thought it was interesting. It goes for the fish with both feet.
Yep.
But then it only really holds the fish with 1 foot. It's almost like it's just like muscle memory, or it's hunting muscle memory to go for it with both feet, but then it can't actually use the one very well.
Yeah, it's hard to see here, but if you guys check out my YouTube page, you can zoom in, you can pause it, you can actually see that it's missing a talon on its right foot there.
Just to throw in a quick question to that, David is asking, with all the eagles competing for food, do many of them end up injured?
Well, I'm beginning to think that's probably maybe what happened to this eagle, that may have gotten some kind of injury, obviously, that made it lose its talon. But yes, they do. Here, I haven't seen any too bad of injuries. I've seen them kind of like tackle each other into the water. And I've seen them tackle each other in water. I've seen them lock talons, and I've seen them do that. But I think the biggest threat is during nesting season. So we had a pair here in Albany, and one of the pair had a tag on its foot so we could identify what the eagle was. And that eagle, I believe this year, was killed by another eagle trying to take over the pair. So they will, especially in nesting season, I think they're even more ferocious than when they're going after food. So it can happen. I haven't seen a lot of bad injuries, because I really think eagles are pretty tough. As you can see with this eagle of one missing talon, that even when missing the talon, it still seems to be, it can hold its own, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and this poor eagle, not only does it have to fish with one talon, it has to defend its fish from other eagles with a missing talon. But it's still also got to do all the defense and fighting it, like you were mentioning with other eagles. Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. I've seen quite a few injured eagles in my photography. So the broken talon, yes, I've seen that. I've even seen completely broken beaks, which is surprising.
Oh,
yeah. How they survive with that. So, and someone just mentioned a missing eye. Yes, I've seen that too. I've seen tail feathers missing. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, especially the missing eye really makes sense, because there's so many times where I've seen them where an eagle will be, I'm sure you've seen this, Christian, will be on the ground eating a fish or something, and another eagle comes in with its talons right by its face. They're usually pretty good at getting out of the way, but I mean, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often with their eyes.
Yeah, you're right, and the juveniles are absolutely ruthless there. The
Yeah.
adults are wiser. They'll jump to the side, but the juveniles don't care. They just go for it.
I know. They don't know any better.
We had one other question here. I wanted to add. This is from Greg. What are your plans to film eagles in the future?
I don't have like a certain plan. I just go out and it's like a passion of mine. So I don't think it's something that I'll stop doing. I just want to keep finding new places. Like, that's the thing I always wanted to do. Like, I definitely want to go out to some of the places you've been, Christian, that will look amazing.
We should go together. We'll have lots of fun.
For sure.
Yeah, that's.
Ricky says there's also a juvie out there with no tail feathers. Wow, I would think that would make it very difficult to fly.
Yeah.
You could go find some of these interesting eagles that people are reporting on, particularly, and maybe try to get like particular individuals that are unique. Yeah.
Well, last year I kind of came across an interesting situation. I was following a nest around here, and the nest had two babies, and they were probably they've probably been flying for a couple of weeks, so they're not they weren't great flyers. They were still being fed by the parents. And I went to the nest one day and I came across one, and one was just laying down on a cliff. And it was laying down, and I've never seen I've never seen an eagle lay down before. So I thought something happened to it. And then one of the parents flies over, lands next to it, and left. And it was for hours. It just sat on this cliff. So I thought it was injured, and actually called the DEC to see what to do about the situation. And I talked to one of the people there, and they said to check its crop, which is something that I didn't even know what that was. And so the crop is basically, for anyone who doesn't know, is where they store their food. When they eat a lot of food and they can't digest it, they store it basically kind of in their neck. And so I look over, and sure enough, its neck, it's like bulging out to here. So the lady on the phone, she's like, yeah, what probably happens is it weighs too much with the food in its thing, and it can't fly.
Yes, that's completely correct. That's completely correct. Yeah.
And the funny thing, then I was like, well, the night before that, I saw one of the parents bring back a whole mallard, a full adult mallard that I think one of the baby eagles ate. So I think it just indulged on that mallard, and then it ate too much and they couldn't fly. But that's the first time I've ever seen or come across that. And now I notice it quite a bit, where I'll see the eagles with their huge necks.
Wow,
Mike,
I can't imagine.
Sorry. I'm going to just put in two more questions from the audience. So Peter would like to know, where are you based? That's the first one.
Yeah, I'm based in Schenectady, New York, which is near Albany, so upstate New York. Good spot, actually, because I'm right on where the Mohawk River and the Hudson River meet. We have a lot of eagles that come through that area, so it's a great spot to film eagles.
Good. And David would like to know, are there legal restrictions on filming at nests? And they say he's talking about the UK. There's sort of some legal restrictions. So
yeah, I think the main thing, I think there is a distance that's like 330 feet. I think that's like the recommended distance. But I think majority of it, and this goes with all wildlife, it's just using kind of common sense and just not disturbing them. Like with long lenses, 600 millimeter lenses, you don't really have to be right on top of them to get good shots. With technology, that's the nice thing, is you can be at distance. And plus, a lot of the eagles that I film around here are in urban areas. So like sidewalks, they're quite used to people. So there's nests that are like in telephone poles here. I mean, there's nests that are right by roads and people's yards I've seen. So I think it depends on the nest too. If you go to a nest that's in the middle of nowhere, it might be a bigger distance that you have to be. But some of these nests around here, they see people all day long. They're basically sharing the area with the people. So you still want to be respectful and not, get too close to the nest, but they're way more tolerant of people. And it's kind of like I think it's a good sign of the eagle population that's coming back, is that these eagles they have to find new nesting areas. And that sometimes I think leads them to more urban areas that you wouldn't think eagles would have nests in.
right. And here's a question that I sort of only know part of the answer. I don't know if you know the answer. Barbara's asking, will tail feathers grow back? If the answer is yes, how long would it take? So this is related, of course, to molting. And I would assume they do grow back, but I don't know the cycle for that. That's as much as I know. I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, Christian, relating to molting cycles, but I think this is also related to the earlier comment about the juvenile without the tail, and Ricky commented that that particular eagle, the feathers were not growing back for whatever reason. So maybe some kind of like genetic thing or more serious injury. But yeah, birds do have natural molting cycles of their feathers where they regularly sort of grow them back.
I can say they fly remarkably well without tail feathers, which is amazing, actually. It's astounding.
Yeah, that really is.
I've taken a film I have it somewhere in my footage, actually, of an eagle without tail feathers. I could not believe it. I mean, tail feathers are so important. If you look at some of Mike's or my slow motion videos, you will see what they do in landing and takeoff with how much roles they plays for fast maneuvering, and they can do without that. It's astounding. Just nature is really full of creativity. Yeah.
That really amazes me. Like they must be compensating somehow, like with how they use the rest of their body or their wings or something. And I mean, forgive a bit of a tangent here, but I was thinking about dragons the other day and how dragons are so ridiculous because they don't have a tail that's useful in flight at all. They just have this stick of a tail. And I was like, that's ridiculous. They wouldn't be able to fly with a tail like that. But now you're proving me wrong. Maybe dragons could fly if they existed. So,
well, if you think about it, if an airplane lost its back tail, or it would fall out of the sky, probably. So it's pretty interesting that they're able to compensate or figure out a way to still fly without, I gotta imagine like turning and stuff like that is a lot more difficult for them and being precise. But that's pretty amazing that they can do that.
Yeah, we have some comments in the chat about, and some birds like feathers can grow back in a month, and others, at least, there's like a complete molt once a year in some other species where the feathers grow back once a year. I guess an update on the eagle, the particular juvenile with no tail, it's been surviving with no tail for 2 years now.
Wow.
So it's doing well despite it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
amazing. Interesting. Yes. Mike, do you want to show
making fun of me for being fine with the fire breathing and gold collecting part of the dragon, but it's the tail that makes them unbelievable. Well, gold collecting, I would say, is believable because, like, some birds collect shiny objects, right? Like crows supposedly will, or maybe raccoons. Some animals are intrigued by shininess, but yeah, the fire breathing it's another one that would be hard to get past.
So, Mike, what is your dream place to go to? I'm just curious, apart from there, I mean, if you have much time, which is always difficult, and I mean, other factors, where would you really like to go to?
I think probably Alaska. And I think, Christian, you go there quite a bit, right? You go to Alaska?
I do. I love it. So
yeah, I think that's good.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Alaska.
Alaska, yeah, it's like all the Aleutian Islands, like everything. You have to be lucky. The last trip that I did, it was just bad weather and many bad things. It just happens, sometimes you just don't get much. And then 2018 was just, everything was right. And it's just, you have to be there a few times in order to get it right. And you also have to dedicate a lot of time if you want to go to Alaska, because the prevailing winds from the Bering Sea are so strong that often the planes don't land for days, and you just stand in a queue, So you have to be very flexible if you want to go there.
Well, I think that just goes for like, I think especially any advice I can give to anyone who's, wants to take photos of wildlife or anything, is you got to realize that majority of the time nothing happens.
That's correct.
You really have to be patient. But I think that's the fun part about it, is that when you do get those moments, those really cool moments, it's like it feels so much better than if you saw it all the time. So I think doesn't matter if you're in Alaska or wherever you go, Conowingo, same thing. You could go there and nothing could happen. And there could be, because sometimes there could be 200 eagles there and they just sit in the trees, whatever for whatever reason, or you could go there and they fish all day. So you really don't know. You just can't expect to have everything happen every single time. And I think if you have that mindset going into it, it makes it a lot more enjoyable. That way you're not angry, because it's a very difficult thing to film. Because I do video production. That's what I do for a living. And when you have people and stuff that you can change and do over, it's very nice compared to eagles, where you just basically have to be there and hope that you have your camera ready to go at the right time.
By the way, thank you so much to Megan. I hope you pronounce your name correctly, Megan, for the award and the teamwork. And here's a good question from Lucia, actually. Whilst you show some more footage, I'll just throw in a question. Are there behavioral differences between East Coast eagles and West Coast eagles? The answer is, Lucia, as far as I know, absolutely. I mean, I've seen the Florida eagles. They are a lot smaller. They also have different migration patterns. The Pacific Northwest, the further you go north, the bigger the eagles actually seem to be in size. The winters get harsher, the climate gets harsher. So there are definitely differences there.
Yeah, and I think there's any area. I think I've noticed different behaviors between eagles that it could be 20 miles apart. I think a lot of it is that it depends on their food source. For example, here on the Hudson River, we are like the furthest part on the Hudson River that still is affected by tides. And there's a pair of eagles here, which is it's kind of interesting. When the tide goes low, they wait for the tide to go down, and they go to this one spot where fish get stuck in these tiny little pools. And I've seen them do it a bunch of times, where they wait for the tide. They know when the tide goes down, they go over to the spot, and they find these fish that get trapped in the shallow water, and then they use that for their way to feed. Whereas eagles on the Mohawk River, 3 or 4 miles away, they don't have tides, so that's a totally different way that they have to find food, and they're within 4 miles of each other. So not only the size differences, but I think it's just the way they what you're feeding on too, and the behavior of, they figure out how to. They find that eagles are very good at figuring out how to feed themselves with what's around them, I think, and then figuring out the schedule, and then using that to their advantage.
These are absolutely stunning shots. It's just, so where exactly is this, what you're just showing? This is just
This
so
is
stunning.
so this is the one of the coolest things that I've come across is this is right outside New York City. So
Really?
yes, I mean you could.
Wow.
I mean since it's probably I don't know 4 or 5 miles from New York City. So there is this. It's very interesting because it's in Manhattan. Obviously, it's one of the the biggest cities in the world. It's skyscrapers, and it's the last thing you would think of is wildlife. But in New Jersey, there's this little river. As you can see how small it is. Like I mean, you could almost jump across it. That's how small this river is. And I've only seen eagles on big water up to this. Bigger rivers, lakes, and ponds. But they found this spot that you can see how small the water is there, right in the thick of New Jersey, where I don't know if it's some kind of heron or something, but they found these little fish supply in this tiny little water. There's probably 40 or 50 eagles, and there's one little river, and they're just catching these tiny little fish right
Wow.
in people's backyards. And it's crazy because you would never even know they're there because of all the stuff that's going on in the city and stuff. And they're catching a ton of fish. I don't know how all these it's sustainable.
That's
You can see the
incredible.
mergansers and stuff. Everybody
Yes.
was eating fish there.
Wow. Yeah, that looks sort of like November, December, or January, somewhere around there, right?
Yep, this was I think in January.
Mm-hmm. Gosh. And thank you everyone for your generous contributions here and the awards. We really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm just looking at some of the comments here. Do they also talk in different accents? Yeah, that's a good one.
Probably. I think, yeah, there's probably some studies on dialects. And I know in other species of birds, they have dialects in different areas of the country. I don't know just about it that small scale for such big birds, but that was really cool to see them, yeah, in that tiny little stream just by the houses and stuff. So I couldn't really talk while I was sharing the screen, but wow. And it's amazing. What was striking there is that some of those birds don't seem concerned about the eagles. Like those ducks and stuff were just kind of floating around, and maybe in a
Yes.
different sort of habitat in a different area, the eagles might try to go for those ducks. Is that correct? But since there's so many
Yes.
fish, and
Yep.
that's so interesting. It's a great parallel because it's just like how you were describing, in an urban environment, the eagles aren't really that concerned about people being close to their nest. Well, here in that particular little creek, the ducks aren't that concerned about the eagles because they're like, these eagles aren't going after us. They only care about the fish. So that's pretty cool how the relationships between species like change in different places and with different situations.
Absolutely, because exactly. I think it has to do with the amount of fish there because obviously the eagles weren't targeting them, and there seemed to be plenty to go around. But in winter, especially, I've seen it. I've seen it a bunch of times. Usually in upstate or out here because there's not as many fish. When there's less fish, as soon as one of those mergansers catch a fish, 4 or 5 eagles come in and steal it from them almost instantly. And then I've seen them multiple times catch.
And do you actually?
Yeah, I've seen them quite a few times. Yeah, leave with a merganser. It's not very often, but when there's no fish, that's next.
What about ospreys?
Cool.
You should have quite a few ospreys too, or have you actually tried osprey, which is much more difficult again, isn't it?
Yes.
In slow motion.
Yep. No, we have. I got a nice shot of an osprey the other day catching a huge catfish.
You have?
Yeah. It's on my YouTube page.
Oh wow! I'd love. Maybe we can round off the show with that if you don't mind, just looking for it, Mike, if possible, because that would be fantastic. I know how difficult that is. Yeah, show it exactly. We will. We'll wait.
Yeah, and while Mike brings that up, I'm just going to plop the link to his YouTube in the chat again here. But if you search his name, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube as well. Yeah. Looks like tons of cool videos.
All right, I got the video.
Oh, great. Okay, we'll remove ourselves from the screen and then I'll leave it to Georgia to do that.
Okay.
Wow, gorgeous start.
Yeah. Well, you gotta. Sorry, trying to find the plug button here. If you, another thing too is that sunrise is usually when most of the action happens. Seems like. So this is here in it's on the Mohawk River, where the Mohawk River meets the Hudson in Albany, New York.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. But one thing I've noticed, and I don't know if you guys noticed this too, is that eagles like to steal from osprey.
Yes. Yes.
Ospreys, being great fishers that they are, I've seen it a bunch of times. Well, they'll catch a fish because they catch a ton of fish. I see them catch a lot more fish than eagles. But a lot of times the eagle just waits for the osprey to catch it and just takes it from him. So in this video, I was this osprey was right in the middle of an eagle pair territory. And when he catches a big fish, my first thought is, where's the eagle going to be? Because
So that's the osprey going down right now, correct?
Yeah.
For those of us non-birders.
Yeah.
And this is so difficult to film because this is a lot faster than what the eagles do. It's just amazing.
You can see it's below a dam. That's
right.
And the eagles like the power lines here. They use that. It's one of their main perches.
Yes.
And this osprey, it took him quite a few attempts to find this fish, because there's pretty heavy current. So I don't even know. The osprey vision's got to be pretty amazing too, because I don't even know how you even see a fish in current, dirty water like that.
Wow.
And it was kind of interesting too, because I saw when he was on that perch, you kept seeing him look around, like he knew the eagles were around there.
So did he get away?
No, he gets it. So right here, you'll see he does the cannonball.
Wow.
He's actually fighting the fish. You can see it flopping around a little bit.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So he's got a huge catfish right now in one of his talons, which is crazy because he's in current, which is pretty strong. And those catfish are pretty strong fish. So you can see he couldn't get out of the water with it the first time.
He's really struggling to get out of the water. He's taking a breather. He's like, "Oh, gotta catch my breath." Or she? Do we know if this is a he or she?
I don't know. I don't know a ton about ospreys, but I know that catfish is probably fighting like crazy underwater too.
Yeah. Oh, here
Gosh,
we go.
Mike, you have incredible footage. It's marvelous. Really marvelous. It's wow.
That fish is like as long as the bird is.
Which is, osprey, they have to be pretty strong just to carry a fish like that.
Yeah.
And there's the eagles.
Eagles are lurking. They're like, aha, I see. Very interesting. Oh.
Thanks everyone for all the awards, and really thanks to Mike for presenting the most amazing footage here. It's just stunning, absolutely stunning.
So what do ospreys have, like any kind of counter strategy? Like they know that the eagles are going to try to get their fish. Like, do they try to like get into the trees as quickly as they can with it, or? So
in this particular case, the eagle actually didn't really even notice him. So he was able to kind of sneak out.
Okay.
But I think when the eagle has him in sight, there's not a whole lot they can really, because the eagle is quite a bit bigger than the osprey. But the osprey, they're incredible how good they can catch. I see them catch fish probably 4 times as often as I do see eagles.
Mike, just a question about your post-production. So if you shoot at 120 frames per second in post-production, do you slow it down more? Because it looks to me like that. Is that correct, or is it really?
That was all 120.
So you go from 120 to 30 frames per second in post-production, right? Or
yes. So
to 60?
Yeah, so in Adobe Premiere, which is I use that, you can do a thing called
Yes,
time
me
remapping.
too. Me too. I
Yep.
know. Yes. Uh-huh.
So you can, which I'm sure you know, but for anyone who doesn't know,
Yes,
you can do it so you can ramp the speed from fast to
exactly.
slow, and you can
Yes,
smooth it
yes.
out and make it look really nice, and you can slow the parts you want down. So that's how I do that. So everything I shoot is in 120 frames, and then I speed it up if I want real time, or slow it down if I want to show something that's dramatic.
Well, I can really see your experience, and then of course, if you shoot in 4K, you can crop very nicely, right? It's incredible,
Yep.
beautiful work, really.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Georgia. Is there anything else you would like to ask?
I have nothing to add except for thank you so much, Mike, for sharing your beautiful footage with us and introducing me to the world of these eagles and yeah, this kind of special cases of eagles living with humans in these human modified environments. It's so cool to see them in the dams and in the small little creek rivers by people's houses. It's just
Mhm.
it really changed my perspective on like the types of places where these birds can live and yeah, and how they interact with other animals and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's like it really goes to show like how well of a comeback they've made, that you're finding them. Because I mean, I see eagles all the time, really, in places you wouldn't think to see them, and chances are there's more eagles than you think. You just got to know where to find them, how to notice them, because they seem to, especially around here, they seem to be pretty prevalent, and it's really cool to see that their population is growing every year, and you get to see more and more of them. Because there was a time, as you said before, that it didn't look too good for the eagle.
Yeah, Christian, any closing comments on your part, I guess?
Well, just I'm in complete awe, and that's why we invited you. And I knew this was going to be good, but I didn't know it was going to be this good. I mean, it's just fantastic. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
I appreciate you guys having me on, and I really appreciate your guys' expertise and your knowledge. And the show was really awesome. And I've seen so much of your footage, Christian. I have people all the time send me footage of yours. Like, did you see this shot? And it's like, oh yeah, I've already seen this shot. I follow all this stuff. So I love your stuff, and keep up the good work. It's great to see and everything. And I'm just so glad I get to share it with you guys.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks so
Mike.
much.
And I hope we'll see you more often on HAPS. I think you're going to get a lot of followers. It's just so stunning what you do. So please follow both Georgia, of course, and also follow Mike. He's new to HAPS, and he really deserves a great following. You've seen what amazing footage he does. So yeah, on that note, so thanks to everyone. It's been wonderful. And we don't know the topic yet for next week, do we, Georgia?
Well, we do, Christian, I believe. Is it next week,
Okay.
September 1st? Yes, so I was about to say, everybody, please come
Okay.
join us next week for another very exciting topic with cool footage with it, which is vampire bats.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, so next week, the same time, Wednesday at 1 Pacific Coast time and 4 Eastern time, we're going to be having guest Jerry Carter, and he's going to be talking to us about vampire bats. And he also has a lot of cool footage of the bats. So yeah, we hope to see you all then.
Yes, and thank you so much. And this has really been a wonderful show, and we wish you a wonderful week with lots of wildlife experiences if you have the opportunity. Thank you then,
Yeah.
and goodbye.
Thanks.